Okay, and we are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another session of the Book Reading Club. This time we have a very special session with us because we're actually doing a live event launch of a book. In this case, it's going to be the book written by Thorben. And his book is about Hibernate. So we have Thorben here with us to talk a little bit about the book. And the book is actually called Hibernate Tips. So before going a little bit with the book, I want to listen a little bit about Thorben for him to introduce himself to our audience.
Okay, hi, I'm Thorben. I've been working with Hibernate for about 15 years and blogging about JPA and Hibernate for the last three and a half years. But at some point in the last year, I started a blog series called Hibernate Tips, where I showed simple solutions to a concrete problem. So it was basically the response to common questions that I got from my audience. And well, that was the beginning of a quite successful blog series that I wrote for several months. And I got questions about it, if I could write a book about it. So basically a cookbook. And that's what I did in the last few months. And well, I launched it yesterday. So it's available now.
Awesome. So it's it's a pleasure to have you here with us and actually picking us our book reading club to launch your book. So here with us as well we have Ivan. How are you doing?
Hey everybody, glad to see you again and glad to see Thorben finally. I read your blog for so many years and now I'm finally able to meet you.
Yeah, so this is going to be a little different session that we've done before. So we're going to discuss a little bit on how the book came to be, a couple of things about the book, and since this is the launch event of the book, I don't suppose you have it like a hardcover there to show us, Thorben?
Not right now, sorry.
Okay.
But we can have a look at the ebook version.
Okay. And after this session, we're gonna schedule a couple of more. We're gonna go and deep dive on the book as we did on the other books that we covered before. So, Thorben, you mentioned that you started this blog series about Hibernate and some tips that you were writing as a blog post. So I'm guessing that was the basis of you having the idea to write the book, right?
Yeah, that was the basic idea. So I got a few questions if I could provide more of these tips, maybe in form of a book. And at some point I thought, well, if everyone is asking about it, that's probably a good idea to start writing the book. So I thought about which kind of tips I could include in the book and then started to write the book at the end of last year, beginning of this year. And in the end, I wrote about a little bit more than 70 tips, more than 30 of them exclusively in the book, and some that were already published on the blog.
Yeah. So, how hard was it to write the book? I mean, you already have most of those on blog series, right? So it was kind of easy to write the book, or?
Yeah, it wasn't too complicated. I mean, I followed the same structure as I did for several months with these Hibernate tip blog posts. So I was already familiar with that, and I had a pretty good plan what kind of tips I wanted to include in the book. So I basically had to sit down and write a bunch of tips and then edit them so that they really become a book and not just a collection of blog posts. So it wasn't too hard, but writing that many tips, and in the end it's about 250 pages in the print book, was, well, harder than I thought, and it took more time than I expected.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Ivan.
Yeah, I've heard that writing a book is not an easy thing. It takes a lot of time, a lot of patience. And you did it just for 3 months. So would you please share your secret about writing 250-page book just in 3 months?
Where the main trick about that is that I planned all the tips beforehand. So I did a lot of planning at the end of last year, and I already mapped out the complete structure of the book. I had a collection of about 100 tips, or at least ideas for tips that I could write. So I reduced them to 72 in the end. And well, then I worked 3 months full time on the book. So most people do that in the evening or besides their day job. And I'm currently just working on the book and on a few online trainings and classroom trainings that I'm offering. So I basically spent 3 months full time, well, more or less day and night, on the book. Well, as I said, I thought it would be easier and that it wouldn't take that long to write the book. You know, if you write these kind of blog posts on a regular basis, you more or less know how long it takes to write a blog post. So, well, it was probably a little bit naive, but I thought, okay, if I have to write that many amount of Hibernate tips, and I know that I normally need about that time for that, then, well, I can just more or less estimate how long it would take to write the book. But as with every project, it took a little bit longer, about 1.5 times as long as I expected, before I finished the first version and could send it to an editor.
Awesome. And what will you consider that the audience for this book will be? Like regular developers, senior architects, junior engineers are just starting over with this technology?
Well, I cover a broad range of topics in these recipes. And you should have at least a good basic understanding of Hibernate and the general concepts of JPA. But as long as you're familiar with that concepts, you find more or less tips for more or less every knowledge. So I start with tips about bootstrapping Hibernate or mapping basic attributes, which is probably something for a junior developer who is familiar with the at least general concepts of Hibernate. But I also talk about calling stored procedures or writing attribute converter to support custom data types, which is definitely not a topic for a junior developer. So yeah, in the end, you find something for more or less every knowledge of Hibernate.
Great. So another interesting thing is the way how you structure the book in like these small tips. I'm guessing that's also because on how you wrote your blog post. But the interesting thing is, contrary to other books that you have out there, not only on this topic but other topics, you usually end up having like these huge bulk of chapters where you have to read them all to find something you're looking for. And here you have something like, you want to do this is the solution, right? So
yeah, well, that's because I started this whole project more or less as blog posts in the beginning, and that was just the answer to a question that I got from my reader. So I had a question or a problem statement, and then I provided a solution for that. And that was the way I structured the blog posts, and that is now also the way I structured the book. So you have 72 questions in this book, and then I provide a solution for that. Within the book, in the form of text and code snippets, but also with example projects that you can download, and then you can go into the project, have a look at the code, run a test case, and basically copy the parts that you need for your current project.
Yeah, so and these projects are available on GitHub, right?
No, but there's a link in the book, and you can download it from there.
Oh, awesome. So,
okay,
yeah, Ivan?
Can I ask something?
Sure.
You mentioned Hibernate and JPA. Are are all the tips specific for Hibernate, or there are some tips that are more standard and are applicable for JPA and for all the JPA implementations?
Well, most of them are applicable for all JPA applications. I mean, Hibernate is one of the most common JPA implementations. So most of the stuff that I show can be done with JPA, but there are some things where you rely on Hibernate-specific features. But most of them are also applicable for Eclipse Link, for example.
Okay.
And do you plan on expanding the book to cover other implementations, or just looking into Hibernate?
Well, so far I mostly wrote about either JPA as a standard or Hibernate specifically. And well, I might change that in the future. Every now and then I get a question if I could write something about Eclipse Link, for example. But until now I focus on Hibernate or the JPA standard in general.
Oh, awesome. So the interesting thing again about the book is that it doesn't really have an order on how you read it. So you can just grab it and you can just go like to the tip number 50. I don't know which one it is at the moment, but you can go there and read it, and you don't have to have that much knowledge on what the other tips were behind, right? So it's kind of like mostly like a cookbook, right? So you can just go and go through the book in whatever order you prefer or you want.
Yeah, it's basically a cookbook. So the general idea is you put the paperback version on your desk or the ebook on your hard drive, and every time you're working with Hibernate and you're wondering how to implement something, and you're not exactly sure how to do that, you just open the book and search for the question that maps your current issue, and then read about 2 to 5 pages probably, and you get an example and an explanation how to implement the specific thing you're currently working on.
Great. And what would you think? Well, can you give us an example of one of the favorite tips that you wrote on the book? Do you have any favorite tips that you have there that you recommend people to look at?
Yeah, there are several ones. Well, maybe I can share my screen and we just have a look at the ebook and go through the project, if that's okay with you.
Of course.
So let me share my screen. So here, for example, is a very basic tip in the book that shows how to map a Java util date or a Java util calendar to a database column. So Hibernate provides a default mapping for that, but most often that's not sufficient for the use case because you don't want to store the Java util date with nanoseconds in the database. So let's say you're wondering how to store the Java util date as a real date, so years, months, and days in your database. You just open this tab, and here I explain that Hibernate basically supports 3 options: timestamp, time, and date. And that you have to provide it as a temporal type in the temporal annotation. So here's a short code snippet that shows that, and followed by the log output that you can see here. And then you can open the example project, and you see here the same code that I use in the book. So here's the author entity. I annotated it with temporal type date. And you have a test case that you can run, which basically just persists the new author entity and then calls the entity manager find method to read it from the database. You can run this, and then you see here the log output, and you can now tweak the test case and play around with it to find out how it really works and to get a good understanding of it. And if you want to dive deeper into that topic, you can have a look at the Learn More section at the end of almost every chapter. And for example, read about how to map the new date and time APIs, which is probably more interesting for most developers who are attending this call. So since Hibernate 5, you can map the date and time API classes with Hibernate. So I explain here that Hibernate now supports them as basic types, so you basically don't have to do anything. The only thing you have to do is define an entity attribute of type local date, and Hibernate will take care of that. There's, of course, also an example project for that. So let me see here, date and time. So here's a book entity that has a local date attribute. And you can, again, execute a test case for that, which persists a new book and gets a new book from the database. So these are basic mapping definition things that you need in your daily work. But a lot of developers will now probably say, okay, it's great that Hibernate 5 supports that, but I cannot use Hibernate 5 in my projects. But that's not a problem, because with Hibernate 4.4, you can also persist date and time API classes, basically with every JPA 2.1 implementation. The only thing you have to do is implement an attribute converter. And how you can do that is explained in the How to Map the Date and Time API with Hibernate 4.4 chapter. So maybe we have a closer look at this one. So the general idea of an attribute converter is that you define the mapping between the Java type and the type stored in the database, or at least a supported, or at least a type that Hibernate can map to a standard JDBC type. So here's a short code snippet about that shows an attribute converter for the local date class, and I explained it in the text before this code snippet. So the attribute converter is an interface defined in JPA 2.1, and it expects the Java type as the first type parameter, and then the supported data type as the second one. And you have to implement two methods: convert to database column and convert to entity attribute. I think it's pretty obvious what these methods should do. And with with the Java SQL date, so this is not a util date, it's an SQL date, it's pretty easy to implement because this class already provides methods to convert an SQL date out of a local date or a local date from an SQL date. So you just have to call date.valueOf to get the SQL date version, or you can define, you can convert the Java SQL date to a local date by calling the toLocalDate method. And the interesting part here is that if you annotate, you have to annotate this class with a converter annotation. But if you set the auto-applied attribute to true, then Hibernate will apply this converter to all entity attributes of type local date. So you can then just go to your entity and add an attribute of type local date to it, and Hibernate will automatically apply the attribute converter, which converts the local date to a Java SQL date, which then can be persisted in the database.
And of course, you have a sample for that.
And there's a sample for that, of course. So here's the local date converter, which is basically the same as I showed in the book. and you can use it in the entity here, and then just run the test case for it. So, and this is the general structure that you find in all tips. So you have an explanation in written form, and then you have code snippets that show exactly that. If you want to dive deeper, you can download the source code. And then there's the Learn More section, where you find links to related tips in the book so that you can dive deeper into that topic. Or if you recognize, okay, that is almost the thing that I'm looking for, then you also should have a look at the Learn More section, which hopefully most of the times contains a link to the correct, or the tip that helps you the most.
Awesome. So it seems to be, I think you have done a terrific job there with all these knowledge about JPA and Hibernate on these really awesome cookbook. So can you tell us now where we can actually get the book so we can look into that deeper and have our audience grab it so they can read it for our next couple of sessions?
Well, the easiest way is you just go to hibernatetips.com, and there you can currently get it at a launch price of $2.99 for the ebook or $12.99 for the paperback version. So it's just hibernate-tips.com or hibernatetips.com. Okay.
So I'm just gonna grab, and I mean, I already have the link there on our Hangout or our Meetup website, but we're gonna publish there on our Twitter and the RSC channel as well. Trying to see if you have any other questions from our audience over here. I don't think we have at the moment. Ivan, is there something that you want to ask?
Yeah, well, while you were showing the book, I was wondering, in the next couple of editions of the Virtual Jug Book Reading Club, we are going to discuss your chapters. So us right now in structuring your books into separate parts. I mean, is it just the first 35 or 37 tips, or there's a better way to structure the book in two parts?
Where there are higher level topics like basic mappings, advanced mappings, Java 8, and so on. So I would say we have a look at the Hibernate tips and select the about first 35 of them and see that we then include the complete topic. Let me have a quick look.
Okay.
So we can probably start with these sections. Setting up Hibernate basic mappings, advanced mappings, Hibernate specific queries and mappings, and Java 8. That should be about the first half of the book.
Okay.
Great.
So next time we will discuss this.
Yeah. So now our audience has the link, and you can grab the book that just came out yesterday. You can grab it at a discounted price as the book launch event. So stay tuned with us for the next couple of weeks. We're going to schedule a couple of more sessions with Thorben. We're going to discuss the book with more detail. So this was just a sneak preview on what he has wrote for us. So I don't think if Thorben, do you have any other thing that you want to announce to our audience at the moment?
No, I just want to thank you for this session and the opportunity to present the book and do a live launch event with the Virtual Book Club.
Yeah, it was our pleasure. I mean, we never done that before, so we have reviewed multiple books before, but we never done a book event launch. So It was a pleasure to have the opportunity as well to do that with you. So we're gonna schedule the next event for the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned to the Virtual Jug website and the Meetup website where we're gonna announce the event. In the meanwhile, try to grab the book, read it. You can think on questions. I'm gonna create a thread event on the Meetup website where you can start posting your questions to Thorben. If not, then you can join us on IRC and ask your questions over there. We're also trying to experiment with the questions live on the YouTube channel and link at the same time. So you can also do it over there. Actually, let me see if we have something, some question over there. I don't think so, but yeah, we don't have anything at the moment. But anyway, this will just go and use the same approach that we did with the other books. We just go and review a couple of things of the book, and then you can post your questions. So if there's anything else, we're just gonna go for now, and then we can meet each other again in a couple of weeks. So thank you, Thorben, thank you, Ivan, and thank you for our audience to be here with this book event launch. It was a pleasure to have you all here with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.